Hey everybody, how's it going? Jesus Ramirez here from the Photoshop Training Channel. Here we are at yet another live YouTube session. Today is October 6th, 2017. And as you probably saw from my email or the thumbnail of this video, we're going to be talking about layer styles. But first of all, how is everyone doing? I see that we have people from Dubai, from San Francisco Bay Area. That's where I'm at. Hello. So yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, there's people writing in a language I can't understand, but hello. In Santa Barbara. All right, so let me get started with this. And just to give you actually, before we get started, I just want to mention that what we're gonna do here is we're gonna work with a sort of an advanced feature on layer styles and how you can create clipping masks. Sometimes you create clipping masks with layer styles and then they don't really work, and I'll show you why. And you could also create these really cool effects with layer styles. So that's basically what we're going to do today. Then if you have any questions, I'll answer them. And then we have, I think, 2 composite critiques that we're going to go over. And a lot more people are joining from a whole bunch of places. Campbell River, British Columbia, Canada, Amazon, Brazil, that's super cool, India, and more languages I can't understand, but thank you. Germany. All right, so yeah, thank you everybody for being here. So why don't we get started? So we're gonna work with this background here that is just a great background, and I added a little bit of a texture to it, but it's really not that fancy. It's just a pattern overlay. And I'm gonna just select the type tool, and I'm using a font called Palace Script, and I'm just gonna bump up the font size, and we'll type something. We'll go YouTube. We'll just type in YouTube Live, and I'll make that larger like so. And I hope I spelled everything correctly. There it is. I'm gonna center it. So one of the ways in which you can center things, layers, that is, you can press Control-A, Command-A on the Mac, make a selection around the canvas, and then just click on the center vertical, center horizontal buttons right up here, the align buttons, and it centers for you. Control-D, Command-D to deselect. And what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly apply a golden type effect to it. So I'm going to double click to the side of the layer. I'm going to click on bevel and emboss. And actually, one thing is that the layer styles remembers the last options that you use. So when I practiced this last night, when I created that thumbnail that you saw on the introduction of this graphic, it kept all the settings. So it's going to save us a little bit of time. The gold text effect is really not the tip that I want to show you. So if you want to follow along, you can always pause the video, look at these settings that I have here, and then just apply them to your text. So we're going to apply a bevel and emboss. We're going to apply a stroke and inner shadow, color overlay, and outer glow and drop shadow. One thing I do want to mention, and I'll click on those again actually so you can see the settings. So those are the settings for bevel and emboss, the settings for stroke, settings for an inner shadow, color overlay, outer glow, and drop shadow. And one thing I want to mention right before we get into the real meat and potatoes of this tip is that just because Photoshop labels something a certain way doesn't mean that's what you have to use it for. So for example, inner shadows, you can see that if we switch the blending mode to overlay and use white, we can actually use it as a highlight. You see that? So always keep that in mind. So I'm just going to press OK for now. So now we have our text. There it is. And we save quite a bit of time just having it ready to roll. But like I said, the actual golden text is not really what the tutorial is about. If we wanted to add more interest into this design, we can of course add a whole bunch of things to it. So for example, we could add a texture to it. So let me just add a photo here. Give me 1 second. So I'm going to add this photo of Sydney to it. And I can clip it to the layer below it by pressing Control-Alt-G, Command-Option-G on the Mac. And there it is. Now let me go into the blending modes and change the blending mode to luminosity. And I can blur that out, or I'm sorry, bring down the opacity, and I can blur it. So I'm going to go into filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I can blur it just a little bit, just to add a little more realism to it. So you can see how we're sort of getting a reflection there now. And I can increase it like so. And I can also press Control J, Command J to duplicate. And this time, instead of using luminosity, I'm going to change the blending mode to color dodge. And I'm also going to remove the color. So actually what I'll do, I think I went one step too fast. So I'm going to just, I'm going to go into image, adjustments, and black and white to make it black and white. And now using that color dodge, it looks like a brighter highlight. But of course I don't want it affecting the entire image. I'm going to press Control Alt G, Command Option G on the Mac. And you can see how it's only affecting the highlights. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to even make it darker so it only affects some of the highlights, not all of them. So I'm just going to bring that down, so I'm making the image darker. So before and after, notice that we're only adding just a few highlights here into the text. And that's what I want. So that's before and after. So notice that by adding clipped layers to this text, we're making it just a little more realistic. And of course you can play around with the luminosity and opacity and all that fun stuff. And the next thing I want to show you is I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to go into filter, or actually I'm going to fill it with white first. So white is my foreground color, Alt Backspace, filter, noise, add noise, and that level of noise is okay. And I'm going to go into filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to blur that just a little bit like so. Then I'm going to go into image, adjustments, threshold, and I'm just going to adjust this accordingly. So maybe just trying to get just a few black dots like so, something like that. Then I'm going to press OK, and actually, you know what? I may need a few more. So maybe something like that. Then I'm going to press OK. Then I'm going to go into filter. Let's see, I already forgot where the next filter is. It's under stylize. Filter, stylize, emboss, and we're going to create this embossing effect. You see that, how it looks like there's like little tiny holes, but we're going to use that for our gold. Then I'm going to press OK, and I'm going to go into the soft light or overlay blending, but I think overlay would look better. Yeah. So overlay, and also clip that to the layer below it, Control Alt G, Command Option G on the Mac, and then press Control T, Command T to transform. So you can transform that layer and then scale it in accordingly. And we should be able to see the, what do you call it? That graphic. You see that? How there's some little golden dents in it. And actually the reason we can't see too many is because they're pretty big. So let's make them a lot smaller like so, and let me zoom in just to see how they're looking. And yeah, I think we need something about this size, but the problem is now that the texture doesn't cover the entire image. So what we can do instead is just hold Alt Option in the Mac, click and drag to duplicate, and see how I'm duplicating the layers. So now I can just place it in different random areas of my text like so. And I'm just holding Alt, that's Option on the Mac by the way, to place that texture on there. So when I zoom in, you'll see now that we have this detail on there. So that is really the key to getting some of these effects to look more realistic. Layer styles are great, but if you start adding clipping mask with textures and other details, then you will get to see much more realistic results. So I'm gonna look over into the chat pod and see if anybody has any comments or questions regarding this effect. And I'll quickly recap it after I read the questions and see if there's anything I can answer for you. So we have people from a whole bunch of places. So yeah, thank you everybody. Sri Lanka, Corona, California, Bangladesh, Ukraine, India, Thailand, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Netherlands, Pakistan, Israel. All right, yeah, so no real questions. So thank you everybody for being here. Indiana, India, Norway, awesome. Yeah, so that basically that was the tip I wanted to show you today. It was not necessarily creating the layer style, but adding elements to your graphics so that they look more realistic to your layer styles, I should say. So once again, to recap, just make sure that you enable, or not enable rather, make sure that you clip items onto your layer styles, and you can do that with any shape really. It doesn't have to be text. You can use a custom shape tool or a custom shape rather, and you can have something like this tool here, or this shape here I should say, and that's actually not what I wanted. I wanted to have it filled in, and I wanted it with no stroke. And let me move that out of that clipping stack there because it's hiding it. So there it is. And you can just come in here, and I'm just going to reset my layer styles to the default list, and I'm just going to add a quick bevel, and I'll reset that to default. And I'm just going to use the defaults just so that you guys could see. That should be fine. I'm not going to really spend too much time on creating a whole new effect for this. But you can add just anything that you would want to have reflected on it to make it just a little more realistic. So maybe on this one I want an image like that, and then clip it to the layer below it. Control Alt G, Command Option G, and then always blur that image. There you go, and bring down the opacity. And if you want that to be a different color, well then you would come into the shape and you would change the color to something else. So maybe that same goldenish color that we had before. And actually this time we'll just make it normal and press OK. But now we have a problem. In this case, notice how I have this color overlay set to normal right here. And then I clip the layer onto it, but it's not showing. You will, when that happens, you do have to make a couple of changes. You have to check Blend Interior Effects as Group and uncheck Blend Clip Layers as Group. And notice that it shows now. And that is because we have a normal blending mode at 100%. So when you run into that problem, that's what you do. So that's one of the other tips I wanted to show you. So Blend Interior Effects as Groups and check Transparency Shapes Layer. So you check these two and uncheck this one. And then you get your reflection on there. And then you can control it as you wish. And now you have a reflective surface, a reflective sort of material on that layer style. Does anyone know what my internet speed is? I believe it's 100 megabits per second, but I'm not 100% sure. Can you use the same effect on skin texture? Well, the problem is that it may not look realistic since skin is not really reflective, but I mean, sure, you could try it, and I'm not exactly sure what effect you want to go for, but you definitely can. And I always forget to bring out the chat so that the recording records the questions, just because sometimes it doesn't show the questions when we record this. So the edges look, yeah, so it all depends on the font. To be honest with you, this font is a little weird. I should have gone with a different one. It doesn't align properly, so you can see there's a couple issues like right there when it connects to other letters. So actually it's not that bad on this one, but on the sample that I use, if you look at the thumbnail, it doesn't really align properly with certain letters. So this font is probably not the best, but I thought it looked cool with these swirls and stuff like that. So that's why we went with it. But yeah, it doesn't line up properly. Yeah, Colin Smith is right. I use dial-up. Thanks, Colin. So yeah, so that was the That was the example for today, just showing you how to add layers, overlay layers onto textiles. And the important thing, again, if you can't see it working, it's because you didn't do the right checkboxes here. So make sure you have blend interior effects as groups and uncheck blend clip layers as group, and then you'll see the graphic on there. So that's probably the most important thing about this whole thing. Okay, so now we're going to get into the composite reviews or critiques or whatever you want to call them. I'm going to give my opinion on the people that send in some composites. So we have two. We have a JPEG and a PSD. We'll go with the JPEG first. And you know what? Last time I didn't mention people's names. And let me see. Now this is going to be bad because I don't know if I have the people's names available right away. But I do have the one for this one. This one was by a person named Mike Fitzpatrick. So thank you for sending this in, Mike. And so right off the bat, again, I don't know what was composited. I mean, in some cases, it's obvious, right? Like that face was composited in. So I'm assuming this is one large background with that element added onto it. Maybe this element added onto it, and then the woman standing there. And the biggest things I see here is that we have this weird area here. I'm not sure what's going on here. So maybe it's because of the compression. If you zoom in, you can tell that it's a JPEG and it was compressed a lot. I'm not sure if that's if that was part of the original image or maybe when the person emailed it to me. But yeah, I would work on that if that's an issue. Also, again, I really can't tell because of the compression, but it looks like this wasn't masked out properly. So again, I would work out the masking. Also, I would work a little more on the glow. I think that the glow is affecting areas that it probably shouldn't. So maybe like that tree back there. I don't know if this glow would reach that tree that intensely. Let me see. Yeah, maybe I would. There's something about the glow that's maybe, I don't know, maybe too saturated, too bright compared to the rest of the image. I'm not sure. And I've shown this before. You can just create a black and white adjustment layer and see the luminance values of the image. And you can see how much more dark her coat is than the rest of the image. So I would match the luminance values, like the darkest part of her, it looks like is this coat. So I would make sure that that coat is no darker than the darkest areas of the image where she's around that. So I'm just going to do this super quick and it probably won't look that good, but we'll try it. So I'm just going to change the blending mode to luminosity and then just make a quick selection around her. Super quick, like this. We'll see how this works. And then just let me just delete that layer mask and make a new one. And try to match it as best as I can. So maybe something like that. So we'll see what that looks like. See before and after. So it looks a little bit better, but you need to do a lot more work than that. So yeah, always look for the luminance values matching the rest of the image. Also, I mean, I know why this is distorted because you try to place it in perspective. And it's a good thing, but I think that you might have stretched it out a little too much. I might try to bring that in a little bit because the faces do look stretched. They do look in perspective, but they look more stretched out than they need to be. So I would work with that. And also, it looks like the entire image is it's got a lot of cool colors. And she has them as well, but I don't think they're as strong on her as they should be. So maybe I would work with that. So I think those are my comments for this particular image. Thank you so much for sending it in, Mike. Overall, it's a great image. Just a few little details here and there. Let's move on to the next one. And this one was sent in by, let me get the person's name because I feel that I should, if they take the time to send things in, I should be able to mention their name. And this is gonna be not so fun because I don't recall when that person sent me the email. So I'm gonna quickly scroll through emails that people have sent me and hopefully I can find the person's name. Okay, I think this is it. Yep. So the person's name is Bernardo Magales, or I'm so gonna butcher this person's last name, so I apologize for that. Magahalhis, and again, sorry about mispronouncing your name, Bernardo, but thank you for submitting your composite. So yeah, so this is a pretty cool looking composite, and I'm glad they sent it a PSD because I can tell so much more about what's going on, what they put in, the work that they did, than just looking at a JPEG that might be overly compressed like the last one. So what I can do here is I'll just disable all the layers and I'll go one at a time just so we can all see what they did. Okay, pretty cool. So sort of what I said with the last person, always make a black and white layer just on top of everything. Whenever you do a composite, just do that by default. Create a black and white adjustment layer, and then that gets rid of the color, and you can always see the luminance values that don't match. You can see this Velociraptor, how he is just has so much more contrast than the rest of the image. So right off the bat, that makes him look like he doesn't belong there. So always be in the lookout for that. Also with this composite, I'm not sure why the person did this. It definitely wouldn't be the way I would do it, but they created this color fill adjustment layer and then placed a background image and then just brought down the opacity. I'm assuming they did that because they wanted to get this, bluish color onto the background. And then they added this black and white adjustment layer and made the blues and cyans dark. I mean, a lot of the colors darker, more specifically the green, cyans, and blues. And they sort of clipped some of the pixels up here. So I would have not gone that route. If you wanted to add that color to the image, then I probably would have done it the other way around, where I would place the background under it and then just use this with, something like soft light or something like that. And that gives you a very similar effect. And then instead of clipping the, like these pixels up here in the leaves and some in the water, I would have gone with maybe like levels or curves. We'll do levels because it's easier to explain. And then just make the image darker that way. You're not really clipping the pixels like we saw up here earlier. And you can also adjust, the brighter pixels as well. So maybe you can make those darker. This fog layer doesn't look very, it doesn't look like it belongs here. It just looks, like this weird stain on the image. I would look for a better brush. If you are a Creative Cloud subscriber, not the photography plan, but, just like a single app or full version of the Creative Cloud, you can download, let me open up my Creative Cloud app. You can download free apps from Adobe, or free brushes from Adobe. So let me show you how. I showed it in a recent video, but I'll show it again. So I'm bringing up my Creative Cloud app, and here it is. And if you go into assets, you have the market, and in the market, you have brushes, and you can download all kinds of brushes. So right off the bat, there's a cloud brush right there. I don't know if it's good or not, but we'll try it together. So you can either download that one or just type in like cloud or smoke or whatever, and then see if it works. So in this case, we'll try clouds, and we'll go into brushes, and we could probably use some of these. Some of these look pretty good, and you might have to do a little bit of trial and error, but we'll see. We'll try this one. I can just click on download, and it's going to download into this Creative Cloud library here. And you can see right now that it's syncing. You can see there that it came up. If I go into my Creative Cloud, I put it on this one here. I actually downloaded it twice, but that's okay. So if I double click on it, it actually loads, and I can start painting with it. So I'm going to zoom out. And I'm going to just create a new layer, and I'll zoom in, paint with white, and there it is. So a brush like this, I think, looks better. So you can go in there and download a better brush. But anyway, so that's not really that important. The important thing is to match, this scene. So I probably would just start creating foggle around here, mist or whatever, and then just adjust the opacity, and then maybe apply a bit of color to it. So whatever color I decide to go at the end, or just leave it in white for now and then worry about the color later. But you know, to me at least, that looks a little bit more realistic than that. So this is the one I just did with that brush, and this is the original. So that's one way I would improve the composite, by using better brushes. Again, this levels adjustment layer might be just a little too much for this. Okay, so this grass, what I would do here is, I'm noticing that you have just a really soft edge, you know, and that really doesn't look very realistic. So what you may want to do instead is use something like this brush tool here, and then maybe that one there, and just make it black, not white. Sorry about that. And then just paint. Am I really doing this right? Am I paint? Nope, I'm painting on the actual layer. I gotta paint the layer mask. There we go. And then just don't make it as soft. So I'm removing a lot of that softness on the edge, and then add a little bit of like one of these grass brushes, like this one here, and then change it a bit, because the transfer is enabled and you don't want that. Color dynamics is enabled and you don't want that either. And you can just paint with white to reveal some of that grass, and I'll reduce the size of that brush. There we go, something like that. And I'm going faster than I probably should, but you know, this is just a quick example. Anyway, I think you get the idea. And then once you have that, what you could do is just blur it, because it wouldn't be that sharp right if it was that far away. There's some depth you can see by the grass below it. But when I zoom in, it's no longer like this soft, you know, blurry edge. You could tell that there's like grass and other things there. There's more detail. So work a little more on your masking so the edges are not so blurry. It's not just like a blurry brush stroke, you know? And you got some light here. It looks like you added some color. Yep, you brought the green channel down. And there's a velociraptor. Let's see how that was created. Let's see. Oh, that's pretty cool. So I like this here. I like this curves adjustment layer with that highlight. See how it adds that light on there, everybody? It just makes that guy stand out more. Now, this is cool, but what I noticed is that the T-Rex doesn't have that. So if you're going to add it on the velociraptor, then you better add it on the T-Rex as well. At least it's not as strong, but it's really noticeable on him. So add it on both, not just one, or don't add it at all. And I guess they both should have it, because you have these shadows on there as well. And I guess just so I could fix that problem I mentioned in the beginning, I would do a levels, clip it to that, and then just don't make it as reduce the contrast is what I'm trying to say. Change the blending mode to luminosity, so that's before and after. But anyway, it looks like overall you did a good job. The problem is those little tiny details, you know. So I would just work on those tiny little details, and you can get a better composite. Also, I probably would work on matching more the contrast and hue of both of the dinosaurs. But I mean, let's see. I mean, to be honest, I don't even know if it's going to be any better. But I'm going to go into the history panel, and I'm just going to create a snapshot, and you can see the before and after. So this is what you submitted, and this is with the few small changes that I made. So I don't know what you guys think, but making those slight changes really makes a big difference. And, you know, it helps things look a little more realistic. Obviously, there's no real photos of dinosaurs running around like this, but, you know, sometimes you can fool the eye. And another thing that I just noticed is maybe you can crop it in more. I think that there's too much like space on the top and the left here. So at least in my opinion, might be better if it was like cropped in, something like that. So I'll do another snapshot. So that's before and after. Somebody's saying, how do they send PSDs that are too large? So the PSDs that I've gotten for people have been sent through me with links. One of them was a link to Dropbox, and the other one, this one specifically, was a link to Google Drive. So you can upload these files onto those services and just send me a link. And let me see if there's any questions. And sorry if I talk too much while reading your questions, because there might have been some important ones on here. Let me see. Oh, sorry. Thanks for letting me know, Lorian, about the dialog box. Whoopsie daisy. Let me see where it was and how bad it was. So let me just open it up again. Oh yeah, that was terrible. Sorry guys, I wish I would have read it. So yeah, my face was covering the dialog box. Whoopsie daisy. So what I'll do is, let's see, here it is. What I'll do is I'll just open it up again, put it here in the center, and then just click on the different settings so that you can see what I had. So that's the bevel and emboss, stroke, inner shadow, color overlay, outer glow, and drop shadow. And what I was talking about, the checkboxes, is enable blend interior effects as groups, disable blend clip layers as groups, and keep transparency shape layers selected. And you can always pause the video and check those out again. Thanks for letting me know. I didn't realize my face was covering it. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, I remember this. So this is the Captain America shield that we talked about last time. You could always, another thing that you can do is you don't have to send me like, you can just make the size of the image smaller. So maybe, something that you could still see the detail, but it's not like full size resolution. And then always put it like on a Dropbox link or something. How do I send an image? On my email newsletter, usually the day before or a couple days before I go live, I send out an email telling people I'm going live and at what time, and then ask people to just reply the email with composites. Bernardo, where did you get the dinosaurs? I'm assuming he found them online. There's a whole bunch of resources online. I mean, Adobe Stock is one, but you have to pay for them. There's a whole bunch of places where you can get images online. Oh, this is a good question. Knowing what I know about 3D, would I prefer to use 3D to make reflections on type? I guess the short answer is yes, but the long answer is it depends. Depending on what the project is, why I'm creating the text. So for example, if it was like maybe like something like this where maybe I'm working like, I don't know, like on a design that's gonna maybe like a website design or something where it's the same font type and the same style, but I have to keep creating different assets, and the assets may change because this week is a different name for something and I'm going to be constantly editing them, then I probably will go this route just because 3D may take longer and then have to worry about the rendering. As where something like this, once I have it set up, I can just come in here and just call it something else. Right now it says YouTube Live, maybe I can change it to Facebook Live, oops. And and there it is, and I'm done. I could just export this out and I don't have to worry about rendering and doing all that other crazy 3D stuff. So, I mean, if we're just talking about aesthetics, I think that 3D probably looks better, but sometimes it's not about what looks better, it's about what works best, right? So, as a graphic designer working on a project like this that I would have to constantly create assets, I would go this route. So I hope that answered, and I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, Lorian, I think it's pronounced. So let me know if you guys have any more questions. It's already been 35 minutes, and if I can answer anything, please let me know. If not, we'll talk again in the next tutorial. Matthew asks when I'm planning to do another composite critique. So my intention is to do a YouTube lives every Friday, if possible. So I've done them for, I think, maybe 7-8 weeks in a row. Although a week ago, I think I did it on a Saturday because I was out of town on Friday. But yeah, I'm trying to do them at least once a week, I guess, is the answer. And that's when I will do the composite critiques, composite reviews, whatever you want to call them. So yeah. So somebody's asking me what certain blending modes do. Instead of answering it, I'm just going to show you a resource. So if you go onto like my YouTube channel, and there's something called right here, right on the homepage, YouTube channel, PTC's best tutorials. I have something called Blending Modes Explained. It's 40 something minutes with an explanation as to what each and every single blending mode does. So you can watch that video there. And if you don't like watching videos and you prefer reading, then you can go to my website, photoshoptrainingchannel.com, and then go, I don't know, I don't want to go back too many pages. I'll just go into the search bar. So I'm just going to type in blending mode. In the search, there you go, all blending modes explained. And I actually did a very, very long post on each individual blending mode and how it works. So if you have questions about specific blending modes, that's what I recommend checking out. And also, now that we're on the internet, follow me on Instagram, JR from PTC, and let me know if any of you are going to be at Adobe Max next month, October 18th to the 20th in Las Vegas. I'm going to be doing 3 labs, 2 sessions, 1 workshop, and maybe 1 other workshop, but I'm not sure about that second one. So yeah, so we're going to have a lot of people here. I think last time we had about 10,000 people at Adobe Max, and this year we're expecting 12,000. And there's speakers, not just Photoshop people. There's, you know, all kinds of people. There's designers, all kinds of creatives, photography, video, like everything. So check it out, Adobe Max. If you can't be there, they're actually going to be recorded and you can watch them later. So you can watch last year. So you can go to 2016.adobemax.com. And under, let me see, sessions, there's something called Max Online. So you can actually watch all the sessions from last year on there now, and the sessions from this year will be on the website at some point. So once they're up, I'll show you where my session is so you can watch it if you're interested. Oh, I see Colin Smith is still here, and yeah, he's going to be speaking at Max. Where is Colin? I think Colin is... Are you under photography, Colin? Where is he? Oh, actually, this is not the website that I wanted to see. This year. Speakers. Let's see. I think Colin is under photography. So, the guy commenting there on the chat now is Colin Smith, this guy right here from Photoshop Cafe. Talking about Photoshop Cafe, you should go to my YouTube channel and also Photoshop Cafe's YouTube channel. And if you haven't already, click on the notification bell. I don't have a notification bell on mine because this is my channel. But if I were to go to, say, Photoshop Cafe, I will see a notification little bell, that one there. So check out that bell. Make sure you click on it on my channel and check out Colin's channel as well. He has a lot of Photoshop tutorials as well. All right, so if there are any more questions, then it was great talking to you this Friday morning, or it may be Friday evening for you, but thank you so much for spending 40 minutes with me or so. So I'll have a new tutorial coming for you guys on Monday and another one on Wednesday, and hopefully we'll get to do another one of these live sessions next Friday. So thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again very soon. Bye-bye.